What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journos, Comics, and Pop Culture. I got a video today discussing Marvel and DC and why the market seems to be on the side of Marvel heavily right now. Before we go into that, guys, please take some time to subscribe to the channel if you aren't yet and check out all the awesome links below. And yes, it's A1 Wednesday, guys. A1 Wednesday, every Wednesday nights and Fridays, A1 Comics has live Instagram sales, and they are off the hook, guys. Their information is below. They are my local Sacramento stores, probably many of you know, but they also do these amazing sales every week. They usually have themes. They have a giveaway item this week. They also have an auction item usually for each show, and they go through all different types of books for 3 hours every night. So there's usually something there for every collector, guys. So check them out. A1 Comics, their information is below. Live sales on Instagram Wednesday tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. All right, guys, let's get into this comment that I received that on another video that talked about why is it that it seems like the market is saturated with Marvel stuff. And yes, another comment inspiring a video. So I appreciate all your guys' questions and comments that you leave, because it allows these conversations to keep going. So reading from this comment, they asked specifically, why does the collector's market seem saturated with Marvel stuff? Why do we see so much talk about Hulk 181 or Fantastic Four #4, but not so much about first appearances of DC characters, etc.? All right, guys, this is a really, really good discussion piece, especially right now, because ultimately it's a Marvel market in more ways than one. Now, I'm going to talk to say, it's not that DC isn't doing their thing, because they are, and I'll bring that up. But to answer this question, yes, right now, and as of late, the market, secondary market, the hype market, the spec market is heavily saturated with Marvel. And there's simply one answer to that, and that's because of the MCU. The MCU and its success has been driving Marvel on the market like crazy. Look, they've been doing it. We're almost 13 years in since Iron Man. Can you believe it's been that long? It's crazy, right? And they've just been knocking it out the park year after year. And with what they just announced last week, I don't think they're slowing down anytime soon. And obviously, all those announcements sparked so much speculation since last week. So let's compare that to what DC has done. We know that in 2013, 5 years after Marvel Studios started doing their thing, you already had the Avengers film at that point. The MCU was already off and steamrolling, right? You had the Man of Steel, which came out, and it opened eyes and ears of people to say, okay, here we go. It wasn't for me, and I know for many fans, it wasn't an Iron Man. It didn't come out swinging like Iron Man did. But it was enough to say, okay, Warner Brothers is going to do their thing. Here comes the DCEU. And it just fell flat on its face since then. I mean, Suicide Squad and the Justice League are the prime examples. And then you have, nice little gems in between. Wonder Woman, obviously. And Aquaman was decent. Here's the thing. The success of these movie franchises in these extended universes, it runs parallel to what the market is demanding right now. All right? And that's just a fact of the matter. DC has not kept up. Nowhere close. So, unfortunately, when you get a movie, let's see, even with Aquaman coming out, it's not like there was, we got to go buy Black Manta's first appearance or something like that. I'm not going to say that a lot of these key books didn't continue to maybe have slow increases in value, which I'll get into in a minute. But that big spec hype, you don't really see it there that much. And even with the success of their, CW Arrowverse, You haven't seen a lot of it because, first off, it's disconnected from the DCEU. And as I follow trends, you get characters that are announced within these CW shows, and it'll spike some books up, but it's not really, more of that long-term spike, and it's definitely not as loud. The speculation around it isn't as loud. You do not hear it within social media. You do not hear it within the YouTube community as much. It's not talked about as much between bloggers and whatnot. And I'm not saying it's not there. It is there, but just not as much. And that's because we cling to the success. The lack of success of the DCEU has put almost a back burner to how we react to like the CW Arrowverse and seeing characters there. We're just the totality of the enthusiasm isn't there as much within collectors that are leaning and putting their weight into movie and live action hype. Okay, so until DC and Warner Brothers gets their act together, I think HBO Max can help that out. And I think a lot of what they're doing with their cinematic releases, me and Jeff on Comic Book Canon, we talk about this all the time. I do believe right now Warner Brothers with the DCEU is in probably the best position that they can be in since the last 7-8 years. Okay, they have set themselves up to play the game of chess, and if they pull it off, I think over the next few years we can really see that market saturation from Marvel balance out, and we can see DC spec saturation come back into play a lot more. I really do, but they have to, the movies have to be successful. The writing has to be good. The characters have to be good. The movies have to speak to the audience. We have to leave those movies just like feeling it. Wow, Black Adam, man, this new Suicide Squad, and all these characters. And I think fans right now, being in COVID and sitting at home, you're seeing that enthusiasm get there because, look at, there's been hype around Vigilante, Peacemaker. But like I said, it's not big hype, and it's not hype that's lasting. There's so much Marvel and other things that are coming up, Star Wars even, that redirects the focus back over here. And then we stop hearing about those, after 2-3 weeks of what DC's doing. But another thing that's affecting that is the delay in all these films. So once the movies come out and they are successful, then that's when I said we're going to see that domino effect to where that oversaturation of Marvel is going to balance out with DC coming and taking more of that market. Now, here's what I want people to understand, though. Yes, Marvel is saturating the market right now, specifically due to movie hype. But movie hype isn't the only reason that books have value. And I've talked about this in videos before, guys. Even in today's climate, okay, it's not just movie hype that drives the value of books. Look at modern books. Noel's been such a big character in the comics that it's driving the hype. And look at DC. Punchline. Punchline was so pivotal in the comics, and she became sought after just because of what was going on in the comics. It had nothing to do with movie hype. So it's there in both Marvel and DC. Can pull fans into demanding these things just within the comic books alone, as well as in independence. When the story is so good, you look at like Crossover, a current one that is just, there's a lot of hype involved because, hey, collectors are into what's going on in the books themselves. It has nothing to do with the movie hype. So another thing to look at too is, this individual asks, why are we always talking about Hulk 181 and all this? Look at Batman 251. The iconic Neil Adams Joker cover. That book is essentially one of DC's Hulk 181s. It's one of DC's early Bronze Age, blue chip books. And I put Hulk 181 with your ASM 129s. Now with your Giant Size X-Men #1s, even your Tomb of Dracula #10. So those books for Marvel, this, Batman 251 is one of DC's books there. And that book has continue to gain value, and it doesn't matter a movie hype. So when you think of saying that the Marvel is oversaturated the market, it doesn't mean that DC is being overlooked and values aren't being driven on the market, because they are. You just have to understand that the loud noise is indeed movie hype in movie spec. But there's collectors that are absolutely investing in DC and collecting DC still, regardless of the lack of success from the DCEU. It's just, like I said, it doesn't get talked about as much. Another one, Batman 357, first appearance of Jason Todd. And you get your first glimpse of a Killer Croc in this book. This is another one that's been moving. It's been moving. It's been increasing in value over the last 5 years even. I think, in a high grade, you could probably look at this book over the last 5, maybe 7 years. Probably went from like a $250 book to maybe close to like a $700 book, if I can just, off the top of my head, gauge some numbers. So these books are moving still, guys. DC, in their comic book collectability, is not going anywhere. And it's not like the success or the lack of success of the DCEU is hurting some of these older books that are already keys. It's just not driving them as much as it's driving Marvel books, right? So you got to understand that it's not that DC is falling off the map. The value of DC key books is not dropping. They may not be increasing that return on investment as much as Marvel, because Marvel has the movie hype. So like I said, if you add a successful expanded universe live action franchise to the DC platform, you are going to see these books continue to increase at an even larger rate, and they can start competing, at least in terms of loudness. They could start competing with being talked about as much as Marvel's spec books. So I'm hopeful for it. I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see that start to happen more. I've always been more of a Marvel guy. I've always collected DC, especially Batman and Superman, Wonder Woman. But I've always leaned more Marvel, even growing up. But I want to see DC succeed. I take an approach of collecting more Marvel just because I'm more Marvel. But also, when you think about movie hype, I'm collecting a lot of Bronze Age, even some early Silver Age, like Strange Tales, because there's a lot of possible future spec there, right? That you could get for a decently affordable price right now. Even Copper Age stuff. I'm heavily on the Marvel stuff right now because I believe that so much more Marvel stuff, so many more characters are going to show up in the MCU, and these books are going to increase in value. But think about this. DC, you may have a longer period of time before you see characters show up in a DCEU and have that speculation talked about on these characters as much as Marvel characters. So you got to think about it too. Even though me as a buyer, I'm saying I need to get the Marvel books before they start getting spec'd on. What about DC? DC may have some sleepers right now that you might have to be a little more patient on and seeing some type of speculation and some type of real big return on investment. But hey, I wouldn't blame you for looking at, even Silver Age, but even Bronze Age or Copper Age first appearances and semi-key books of DC, because they're sleeping on them because of the lack of success of the DCEU. So get them now. Maybe 5-6 years from now, that spec hype's finally going to come. But for me, when I think of Marvel, I'm thinking like 1, 2, 3 years from now, that hype's going to come on these characters. So it really depends on how you look at it, guys. If you're a DC fan, don't be down about this. It's not a bad time to collect DC. It might be a good time. It might be a good time for you to start saying what kind of sleeper keys or minor keys or semi keys I can actually look into, get at a really nice market price right now, that, hey, once we start seeing the DCEU make a real name for itself and have some success, and we start seeing these characters, then boom, you never know. And you might be thankful that you didn't wait because you thought it was just a Marvel market and you only went after Marvel stuff because you were only worried about return on investment because of movie specs. So I hope that broke that down, guys. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts below. I'll close this video by saying this. At the end of the day, collect what you enjoy and be smart about your purchase decisions. So much love to Marvel and DC and independents. Independents have been doing big things, getting a lot of TV deals, and you know, hey, I'm excited for the comic book industry in general. But you can't deny the success of the MCU. I can't wait for 2021. So much goodness, guys. With that being said, again, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you aren't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. And don't forget, A1 Comics Wednesday live sales, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Check them out, guys. You're not going to want to miss it. Go follow them on Instagram. All right, guys. Be well, and until next time.